Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Mormon Atheist. Today, I have a crazy episode for you guys. Today's date is August 31st, 2025. Today, we are going to talk about Solomonic magic and the relation to Joseph Smith and how the roots of Mormonism really kind of are based around the magic of Solomon, right? So we're going to get pretty heavy detailed into this, okay? So I want you guys to stay with me, like and subscribe to the channel. One thing I'm going to do today, apostates, is I'm going to use church sources. I never use church sources, but on this episode has so much power to it that I felt compelled that I had to use church sources. That way, the TBMs out there and people like that can say, well, you're using the wrong source. You're using this. My answer to you is no. This is in your own church history, okay, what I'm about to present to you today, right? So let's get started. This episode really makes me actually kind of nervous to present. I've had this episode ready for a few months, but I don't know. We'll get into it, and I'll explain everything, and we'll talk about it, and let's get into it. So, welcome, Apostate Congregation, to another edition of the Mormon Atheist. I want to specifically welcome our TBM brothers and sisters tonight, brothers and sisters of faith. All right, so tonight I want to walk you through your own history, and we're going to get into the difference between folk magic and Solomonic magic, and what an injustice that has become, what that is, right? So we're going to get into we're not going to talk about the Sunday school history manuals and all that kind of stuff. We're going to get in, we're not going to talk about the softened folk magic narrative, right? Okay. The raw, messy occultism that Joseph Smith himself was and his family, they practiced and lived it, okay? We're going to look at Joseph Smith not as a prophet, but as a restorationer, right? But as a practitioner, a magical practitioner, okay? A man whose life fits hand in glove with the practices described in the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, okay? The grimoires that detail rituals, scrying, necromancy, conjuring spirits, and invoking planetary powers, okay? Which is all stuff Joseph Smith did. It's in your own history. You guys all know this, right? You know the stories, the various stories, right? The very ones that are telling you the truth, TBMs, are the ones that are lying to you, okay? So here's the punchline, though. Much of this stuff, faithful LDS members do to this very day, right? Okay, they unknowingly, though, they don't even know it. That's the key, is you can't hold these people accountable because they don't know, right? They don't realize it. The roots of this stuff is not folk magic. It's ceremonial magic, right? Of the Solomonic tradition, okay? So now I want to talk about who is, I'm going to introduce you to somebody, okay? Well, first of all, let's wait for that. I'm going to introduce you guys to a guy named Lumen Walters, okay? And remember, apostates, this is all in your own church history. So LDS scholars and all of this stuff, Mormon historians, very well know about this, right? They just don't tell it to you in this kind of a way. They soften it, they water it down, they call it folk magic. It's not folk magic, okay? So what is Solomonic magic? Okay. Solomonic magic is ritual practices and texts attributed to King Solomon in the Bible. Okay. Renowned for his wisdom, the wisdom of Solomon, right? And commanding spirits. You're going to find that in the treaties of Solomon, the testaments of Solomon, right? The ring, right? Solomon's ring, right? His ring is a pentagram, right? Okay, so these practices are preserved in grimoires and magical handbooks. Okay, I want to be clear about the magical handbooks, though. All of the magical handbooks that D. Michael Quinn, Bushman, Vogel, that they are reciting, Francis Barrett, these kinds of things. Francis Barrett in the magical world is a known plagiarism, right? It's plagiarized. There's nothing new in Barrett's book. Okay, that's what a grimoire is. It's what works for you. You're taking these spells and this works, that doesn't work, and so you write it down in a journal, so to speak, right? And in that journal is called a grimoire, right? And that's what these are, right? So grimoires are what works for that specific practitioner, okay? And all roads lead to Solomonic magic, okay? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All roads lead to Solomonic magic, okay? So at its core, Solomonic magic is ritual interactions with spirits, angelic and demonic, okay, through a highly structured system of prayers, consecrations, and magical tools, okay. It blends Jewish mystical traditions, especially angelology, okay, that's important in Mormonism, angelology, right? Okay, and the fact that it's Jewish, okay. Uh, Angelology, psalms, and divine names with Christian liturgical elements. Okay. Key features in Solomonic magic: invocation of God's name, right? The use of pentacles, seals, and sigils, magical tools, scrying, hierarchy of spirits, ceremonial purity, which includes fasting, confession, prayer, and prayer are required before the operation can commence, right? Okay, so that's a very, very, very dumbed down, brief explanation of Solomonic magic. Okay, if you're actually interested, you can get the grimoire, the greater and lesser keys, right? Everything I'm going to present to you today is in these books, and it has to do with Mormonism. Everything. Okay, and I'm only using these books tonight as my source to prove, right? Because all roads lead to Solomonic magic, right? And I'm also going to use church sources to prove Joseph was practicing this stuff. Okay, so now I told you about Lumen Walters, so let's get into Lumen Walters. Who is Lumen Walters? Most of you have never heard of Lumen Walters before. So Lumen Walters is a magician, right? And he's in a lot of we're going to get into the articles and the books and stuff like that he's in, where people are mentioning him as having something to do with Joseph Smith, right? And so again, this is stuff that D. Michael Quinn but they refer to it as folk magic. Okay, so who is Lumen Walters, right? What did I do with that paper? Hang on one second. I got to find it. Okay, so Lumen Walters, sometimes he's called Walters the Magician. Okay, he was born in 1789 in Massachusetts, per the census, the government census, right? His father's name was Joseph Walters. He was a Revolutionary War vet, right? His father was. Uh, Finally, his family goes to Vermont, later to New York, and I'm kind of leaving that brief because we're gonna get into some other stuff about him that better describes him. His education, according to Willard Chase. Okay, now this is so important, apostates. You must realize Mormon history that me and you read today is not the original history. I cannot express that to you enough. Okay, so in Willard Chase's affidavit in 1833, okay, this affidavit is in the book Mormonism Unveiled. But apostates, listen to me. There's two versions of Mormonism Unveiled. If you are reading about John D. Lee or the Mountain Meadow Massacre, you're in the wrong book. Okay, that's a whole nother topic. Okay, but you're in the wrong book. Okay, the 1834 edition of Mormonism Unveiled, because in the 57 version, which is the Mountain Meadow Massacre and John D. Lee, okay, the 34 version is married. It's literally word for word the exact same book. The only difference is a lot of stuff has been taken out. A lot of stuff, the entire John D. Lee story has been added, the Mountain Meadow Massacre, all that has been added. But it's literally the exact same word for word book as the 34 version. But it's been altered drastically. The 34 version is the original version, okay? In that version, it has affidavits from Isaac Hale, Willard Chase, Abigail Harris, and they're not filtered. The church hasn't filtered them, right? Okay, so according to Willard Chase, Mormonism Unveiled, Walters studied in France and claimed medical training linked to mesmerism, linked to mesmerism and the occult practices, right? That mesmerism is something that you'll have to look up yourself. It's done by a guy named Mesmer, okay? That's why it's called mesmerism, right? That's where they were mesmerized. All right, so anyways, he was known locally as a conjurer and a necromancer, blending medicine, astrology, and treasure seeking, okay? Treasure seeking is so important, apostates. Walters is described as bringing magic books, okay? Using animal sacrifice and instructing treasure digging in ceremonial circles. I'm getting this information from your own history, okay? Okay, so now let's get into some of the details of Lumen Walters and references, sources, okay? In 1818, the Concord Gazette, New Hampshire, September 1st, volume 12, number 3. Deputy Sheriff James Giddings puts out a notice for a man named Lumen Walters. Lumen Walters. His name is Lumen Walters, okay? But that Lumen is very important. He's going by the name Lumen, right? Which is a magical Solomonic. That's what the parchments are. They're called laments, okay? Arrested in Hampton, New Hampshire for juggling, right? Juggling, you have to, context is so important, apostates. In the 1800s, juggling was a slang word for magic. He was practicing magic. He was a juggler, right? So this is why I say to you, when you search this stuff, you can't just Google search it. You got to read the book, okay? Read these books, apostates. Okay, I have a guy right now that's fact checking me as we speak right now, but through his comments to me, I can very clearly tell that he's Google searching. You can't do that. I in my last episode, I told you, apostates, that I would put Solomon Southwick's name in ChatGPT, and it didn't even know who that was. I had to take a photo of the book and the page numbers that I was talking about. And then it would say, oh, you know, so, you think you're going to debunk me in 20 minutes, brother. It's not going to happen. Okay. You have to read these books. I challenge you, debunk me. Absolutely debunk me. But you have to read these books. You have to, or you have no chance. You have no chance. Okay. That's what juggling is. Okay. All right. So let's go to ritual practices and that was Solomonic magic. Okay. So unlike folk magic, Solomonic magic is formal. It's ritualized and text driven. Okay. It's very specific. I can't express that. It's specific, right? But there are allowable changes, right? And those changes are interwoven with those changes are interwoven. They're allowable changes, let's say, that are in the practice itself. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe that makes sense. I don't know. But anyways, often modeled on the structure of church ritual. Okay. Its practitioners sought knowledge, treasure, healing, protection, and the spiritual power of enlisting spirits, always framed as being under divine sanction, not simple sorcery, such as folk magic. Okay. You have to appreciate the complexity of this, apostates. The meaning, you have to appreciate it, or you're not going to understand it, right? You are on such a different plane, a different level, right? If you don't understand the meaning, the sentiment, the appreciation of what magic is and what it means. See, magic is not, you can't just lump in magic into one thing, right? It has its different fractions, right? And all of those fractions have meaning. They all have their separate appreciations, right? But ultimately, all of those magics lead back to Solomonic magic. Every one of them do. Every modern day magical practice in today's world leads to Solomonic magic. Full stop. Ask any practitioner, where does their magic come from? Planetary magic, chaos magic, where does it come from? Solomonic magic. You understand? Okay, the Palmyra reflector, right? In 1830, okay, now this is where the church takes you to the back alley, okay? The Book of Pukie is a satirical book, okay? It is satire, do you understand? But it's also historical, because this is the first article in print, right? To say certain things, okay? Regardless if you take, it doesn't matter if it's satirical, that is not the point. The point is, why would it be mentioning these things that it mentions in this satirical article if that stuff was not happening? Regardless of how you want to form it, it was happening, and this guy wrote about it. Okay. So June, or I'm sorry, I was thinking the book of, all right. So 1830, the book of Pukie. Okay. June 12th, page 36 through 37. This is Abner Cole, right? He also goes by Obadiah Dogberry, right? It's satirical. Okay. He names Walters the magician, describes him drawing circles, sacrificing a cock, a chicken, right? 18, we're talking 1820s language, apostates, 1830s. Using a stone, tells Joseph he inherits the mantle. So if you read that, he actually points a stick at Joseph and like declares Joseph the, you are the new, the new guy, you are the new magician, right? Okay, so you can go there and read that yourself. Let's move on. 1830, the federal census. Lumen Walters, head of household population schedules of the 5th census of the United States. 1830, page 138, Lumen Walters. This is a real guy, apostates. But the church has watered this guy down and only uses the book of Pukie to discredit him because it's satirical. Do you understand how you're being taken to the back alley? Okay. 1831 Palmyra Reflector is non-satirical, but it's written by the same guy, Abner Cole, right? Golden Bible number 5. You got to remember what the Golden Bible is, apostates. This stuff goes deep. This is not shit that I just pulled out of my ass, okay? Do you understand? Mr. I'm going to fact check you in 20 minutes, okay? It's not going to happen, my man, okay? 1831 Palmyra Reflector is non-satirical, Golden Bible number 5, February 28th, page 109. Refers to Walters as a vagabond, fortune teller, once committed to the jail of this country for juggling. Remember in the affidavit, right? We're going to get into the affidavit, the Willard Chase affidavit. Remember this, committed to jail, okay? Says he reads Cicero in Latin to money diggers, pretending it was Indian history. All right. 1831, Painesville Telegraph, Ohio, March 22nd, reports on Smith and his gang, including Walters, shows Walters, okay, showing Walters' entity has spread. So people know the point of this is that it's in Ohio, right? So the name Lumen Walters is getting out. People know the name Lumen Walters. That's the point, right? Okay, let's get into Mormonism Unveiled, 1834 edition, apostates. Okay. Forgive me, I have to drink my mason jar of coffee. It's early. Okay. Mormonism Unveiled. Okay, the 1834 edition. A collection of affidavits from residents describing Smith's money digging circles. Walters is included in a lot of these, right? Page 232 to 237, depending on the version and the publication. My go-to is archive.org. That's the page numbers you're going to find it on. Okay. The reason why is because they changed it, right? The church has removed a lot of the stuff out of those letters, or they have just removed the letter entirely, right? And me and you, apostates, we don't know that. We never knew that because we never knew about any of these books. See, I don't fault these people for not knowing this stuff because, to be frank, nobody knows this stuff. Maybe they know it in here or there type things, but everybody always refers to the church. Well, the church says this is what you're saying is not true because the church says this. The church says otherwise. This source that is the devoted LDS that they sell their books at the Mormon bookstores, says this. This Mormon historian, this LDS scholar, do you understand what the cult is doing, apostates? They're not using, these books are the source. They are the source. These books are what these people are writing about. And they're giving you their opinions, just like I'm doing. I'm giving you my opinion of these books. So I encourage you to read these books and form your own opinion. Form your own opinion, because all of these books that I talk about in every one of my videos are the source. They are the source. It stops there. It stops at these books. All of these scholars are writing about gleaning by the way. And then they write a faithful argument. Okay? They're not giving you the raw, uncut, unfiltered, down and dirty, in the mud story. They're not. And the only way I can prove, I can sit here and tell you till I'm blue in the face, but unless you actually look at it for yourself, apostates, a lot of these books that I talk about are only 50 pages long. Come on. Okay? Read these things. I'm totally lecturing right now because I'm so sick and tired of these people telling me that I'm wrong and trying to debunk me with Mormon sources. I do not use Mormon sources, Apostate Congregation. Do you understand that? So unless you read these books, the 1834 version of Mormonism Unveiled, and notice how extremely different but similar it is to the 1857 version. And then you tell me why that is. Tell me why. Why is that? I honestly don't know the answer to that. Why is that? What is in Mormonism Unveiled in the 1834 version that is so damning to Mormonism that they had to remove it completely or alter it, whatever, however you want to call it, and come out with an entirely new book called Mormonism Unveiled, and this story about John D. Lee is in there. It changes the entire meaning of what that book is even talking about. That's what Mormonism is. That's what Mormon history is. That's what Mormon history does, is they change the meanings, right? Okay. All right, let's move on. 4 affidavits, 1820 to 1827, with specificity on 1825. Okay, the Willard Chase application, right? Mentions Walters as part of the early money digging operations. Okay. Just a side note, I want to bring my boy William Morgan into this. In the later edition, so in the 1834 version is the only place that you are going to find Lodum Lawson spelled with an N. I specifically say Lodum spelled with an M because that's how it's spelled in all of the Masonic books, with an M. Mormonism changed it to an N. Everything that you find in Mormonism is an N. Okay? And it's only in the affidavits of the 1834 version of Mormonism Unveiled. But his story in later editions has been completely removed. Totally removed. He has an affidavit himself in the 1834 version. Lodum Lawson. Okay? So, back to Solomonic magic. Isaac Hale and his dad, right? Specifically describes the 1825. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I said Willard Chase. in 1825. Not Willard Chase, but Isaac Hale. Isaac Hale specifically in 1825 refers to Joseph's digging gang, including Walters. That's in Emma's dad's letter. Now, all of you TBMs that have ever read Emma's dad's letter knows that that's not in there. Knows that that is not in there because it's been removed. It is in the 1834 version. And there's a whole lot of other stuff. A whole lot of other stuff in the 1834 version that you will find fascinating. Okay? Mormonism is not what you think, apostates, at all. Okay? Abel Chase associates Walters with Smith's money digging circles. Barton Stafford notes Walters in treasure digging and the occult practices. Abigail Harris says Walters the magician has interactions with Joseph Smith Sr. and Jr. in their treasure digging adventures. 1840 census, Gorham, Ontario County, New York. 6th census of U.S., page 145. Apostates, my point here is Lumen Walters is a real person. Despite of anything that the church tells you, or anything that D. Michael Quinn, Dan Vogel, Richard Bushman has ever written about the guy, because they've all written about him. Okay, so this is not something that is new, right? Is what's new is I'm telling you the uncut story, the unfiltered, non-folk magic. That folk magic is bullshit. It's not folk magic, apostates. Okay. Okay, so let's get into the magic. What are my comparisons? Okay. The Urim and Thummim, the spectacles, the seer stones. These are in the Lesser Keys, the Goetia, right? Okay, it illustrates the scrying. It's under scrying, okay? There's, oh God, there's so much to this, man. All right. We'll get into it. We'll get into all this stuff. Prayers. All right. Anyways, let's keep going. All right. So it's in the section of scrying. Okay. There's no chapters in these books, so I can't really give you a chapter and depending on what version you buy, they're all different. Okay. So what they're saying is not different. The page numbers are different. That's all I'm saying. But it's there though. Placing stones in a hat. Oh, wait, hold on, go back. So the Urim and Thummim spectacles. So these are, it's referred to scrying, right? Using crystals, mirrors, using they're to call spirits, right? In the books, they're referred to as shoe stones, like SHEW stones, right? Shoe stones. Okay. In magic, they're used to reveal hidden knowledge. Okay. Placing stones in a hat to see visions, right? Again, this is in the Greater Keys, right? Rituals of enclosed spaces, right? So you use an enclosed space, right? Joseph had a hat. He put the stone in the hat, which in the dark space, it allows the vision to take place in the dark space, right? And that's how he was able to do the translation, right? Was the words appear on the stone, right? And that is a Solomonic magic thing, right? That's exactly how it happens in Solomonic magic. Okay, so placing the stone in the hat to see visions, rituals in closed spaces or darkened bowls for scrying. Okay, used to block something to use to block light. Remember when he was in the room with Martin Harris, he would block the windows, right, in a dark space. Okay, you have to connect these dots, apostates, right? So so also this way, it also allows the visions to appear more clearly, right? The magical parchments, right? Okay, so on page 65 in my book, okay, in the Greater Keys of Solomon, right? My book is the let's see, what's the edition? So my book is the new 2016 edited by Tarl Warwick, Tarl Warwick. Okay, that's my edition. Okay, so on page 65 of my edition, right, is where planetary magic begins, right? Okay, and it tells you all the pentacles, all the like all that stuff, right? Joseph Smith's talisman, the pentacle talisman, right? Or pentacle Jupiter is what they call it. Uh, no, I'm sorry, they call it the Jupiter talisman. I better take a drink of coffee. Goodness. The Joseph Smith Jupiter talisman, okay? That talisman, which is my logo, right? That is a replication of Joseph Smith Jupiter talisman, which is also the third pentacle of Jupiter. I'm going to actually show you a picture of it here in a minute, but it's also the third pentacle of Jupiter, right? And you can't deny that. There's no denying that. You cannot deny that. So, is what I want you to do, apostates, is I want you to go online wherever you want, okay, and take a screenshot of the Joseph Smith Jupiter talisman. It's all fuzzy and blurry, and it's got both sides, right? Enter that into ChatGPT and just simply say, "What is this? What is this?" Don't put Joseph Smith, Mormon. Just say, "What is this?" And it will tell you what it is. Okay. So when it comes to the parchment papers, there's also sigils on that parchment paper. Well, the entire parchment paper is Solomonic magic. Okay, but it's I'm not going to break down the parchment paper for you. That's something you can do on your own. I'm just here to tell you that this is Solomonic magic. Okay, you can do your own research on the particulars, but here it is. Okay, all right. So, Greater Keys of Solomon. It begins right in on page 65. Okay, that whole thing tells you how to set up your parchment, right? Now, in the Lemegeton, it actually has, it's in the, let's see, liturgy. I don't know. Let's see. It actually has a picture in the Lemegeton, not of that specific parchment, but just how you're supposed to set it up, right? In specific to this, okay? You have to understand that the allowabilities, okay? Okay, the Jupiter talisman. We talked about that third pentacle of Jupiter. William Stafford talks about the circles. The appendix of the house book. God, the circles, animal sacrifice. Alvin's body being raised, right? Lucy's practice of divination, treasure digging, right? This is all in a brack, right? A brack. What is a brack? People call that a braxis. It's not a braxis, apostates. It's a brack. It's specific to Solomonic magic. A braxis is a completely different, a whole other thing. A whole other thing. It's not a braxis, it's a brack. A-B-R-A-C, a brack. It's Solomonic magic, okay? So let's get into, Okay, so these are just some of the things that Joseph is doing, right? He's sacrificing the goat, right? He takes a knife and he cuts the throat of a goat, and these are all in these affidavits, apostates. And he drips the blood around the circles. This is part of the treasure digging. It tells you about circles. They got to be 9 feet apart. They got to have the seal of Solomon on the corners, right? It's a whole thing, right? But these people water this down, and all of this stuff is in these affidavits that have been removed. Okay, you have to connect these dots, right? You can't just read this stuff and be like, oh, the church, and just be like dumb about it. Okay, well, why is it removed? Why are these books different? Why? Question, question, question. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why did they change this guy's name? Why is this? They're clearly talking about this guy, but they changed his name to this over here. This is rampant through Mormon history. And we all know this. All of us know this. And the funny thing is, Apostate Congregation, is we all know the church is lying to us in every aspect of the word. Okay? We all know it. You can watch podcast after podcast, and they will all tell you the church is lying to us. The church lies. The church is so deceptive. The church this, the church that. But then they'll say polygamy deniers, folk magic. Why can't the church be wrong about that stuff too? Why? Why does the church, why are they allowed to be wrong about literally everything else, but these few issues, we believe every single word they say? It's just glut, 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 the Kool-Aid, right? Apostates, I don't believe anything the church says. That is the entire point of this channel. I take the church's story and I go to outside source information. I find the original source copies of what these people are even talking about, Mormon historians, LDS scholars, and I read those books. And it's very different than the filtered, watered down story that me and you get today. It's much more exciting. It's much more exciting. I think. I think it's far more exciting. The real history, right? It's actually quite beautiful, to be honest with you, because it's so freeing, but it's extremely nerve-wracking at the same time because it's not what the church says. It's not what the cult is telling you at all. At all. Don't believe me. I don't want you to believe me. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to fact check me. I want you to go read these books. Please fact check me. I invite all of you, every one of you. Please, by all means, do it, do it, do it. All right. So, raising Alvin's body, that's necromancy. The animal sacrifice, a brack, treasure digging, the circles, all of this stuff, if you put it all together in an accumulation of what Joseph is doing, his folk magic, and you say, what is this? This is Solomonic magic, a specialized ritualistic ceremonial practice. Okay? You're not doing this stuff willy-nilly. Okay? This is not something that you dabble in. Solomonic magic is not something you dabble in. Okay? I personally am terrified of Solomonic magic. My only interest in Solomonic magic is how it pertains to Mormonism. That's it. I read these, I go through them, but there's certain things when it says you don't say this out loud, I don't say that out loud, right? Because regardless of what you think, right? This is not what we think. This is not our opinions. This is not my opinion. Regardless of what we think of magic in general as a whole, is not the point. Our opinions do not matter here, right? Rather you believe in Solomonic magic or not is not the point. I don't believe in Solomonic magic at all. I don't believe in magic. Well, hold that. I actually do. I do believe in planetary magic, hands down. I do believe in planetary magic. So these people have watered this stuff down, apostates. Dan Vogel, right? Okay, let's get into this term folk magic. Folk magic does not appear anywhere, as it pertains to Joseph Smith until the 1980s, Richard Bushman. I'm sorry, D. Michael Quinn. 1987, he wrote an article, not a book, an article, and used the term folk magic. Okay? First used in 1987, Early Mormonism and the Magical Worldview article, not the book, the article. And then he later writes a book by the same name. Okay. Okay. That in 1987, Richard Bushman this time, took the Book of Mormon in early Mormon, or the Book of Mormon in early Mormon history, and also did Rough Stone Rolling, and he compounds on the folk magic narrative. This folk magic term was never used prior to D. Michael Quinn and Richard Bushman. Historically speaking, apostates, that is important. Dates matter. This stuff was not in the milieu, Joseph Smith's milieu. This is in the height of the anti-Masonic movement, apostates. You got to understand what's happening in the day. These books are not talking about folk magic. They're not talking about magic at all. At all. None of them do. They do say there's this guy's a magician, this guy's a juggler, this guy. They use words like that, but they're not overall collectively talking about magic as being part of the milieu in the common folk narrative, right? Of the everyday people. Do you understand? That is a lie. That is a complete lie that these people invented. That's not true. It's not true. You read any history book of contemporary of the day, and you will see for yourself that that is a blatant and all-out false lie. Folk magic is not in the milieu of the people. Okay? It's not. Magic at all, period, is not. This is specific. Solomonic magic is specific. You do not mess with Solomonic magic unless you have the right intentions, the right intent. You don't. You don't do it. You don't do it. Okay? So these people, Richard Bushman, Dan Vogel is the one that popularized it. Now, when it comes to Dan Vogel specifically, I have had interactions with him several times about this over the last 2 years. And he's willing to die on the sword of folk magic because he's written books and he has to maintain his narrative. He can't say he's wrong, right? And I actually said that to him. So this is nothing that like is, Whoa. I actually said that to him. So he's the one that actually popularizes the folk magic narrative with his books and his video, right? All that stuff, but he never says it's Solomonic magic. They do, they water it down to sell you, to take you to the brothel. You're in the back alley, apostates. They're taking you to the back alley to sell you shit. The original history is far more interesting. Just come out with it and say it's Solomonic magic because you dance around it so much. There is no way these people do not know. There's no way Dan Vogel does not know that this is Solomonic magic. There's no way. There's no way. He's been studying this for 30 years, apostates. And he doesn't know this? But he tells you everything else, literally everything else, but he calls it folk magic. And they make up this line about being in the milieu. You see how the historians change and alter these stories, right? Okay? It's such an injustice. It is such an injustice to history and to just, I don't know. That is my opinion. That is my opinion. Okay. I have nothing against Dan Vogel. I have nothing against, I've never physically actually met him. I've never, I don't know. I have nothing against the guy or Bushman or Quinn. My issue is they're leading you in the wrong direction. That's my issue. Is they're leading you in the wrong direction. They're telling you the story, but leading you over here and not where you're supposed to go. That is my issue with Mormon historians, period, and LDS scholars, period. They're not telling you the story. They're not telling you the 1834 version of Mormonism Unveiled. Never. They're telling you the 57 version. Do you see how you're in the back alley, apostates, right? Okay, these three people are responsible for this entire LDS milieu of it being a milieu in the corpus. It's not. Okay. Since then, the 1980s, right? Official church essays have picked up on this narrative. This was never a thing. In print, folk magic was never used in the church sources anywhere until the 1980s, after D. Michael Quinn and Bushman wrote about, put it in their books. Do you understand? I've always, in every episode, I've told you that LDS history is the answer to critical thinking. Everything that we know in church history, me and you apostates, is the answer to the critics. They either glommer onto it and accept it and filter it into their narrative, and it becomes official church history occultists or cultists. Understand what a cult is, apostates, how they operate, what their MO is. See, these are things you got to understand, or you're never going to appreciate or understand anything I'm talking about. You're not going to understand it because you don't appreciate it. Mister, I'm going to fact check you in 20 minutes. Okay? Since the 1980s, official church essays, educational curricula has become the shorthand for the church narrative, right? Folk magic has become the story. Okay? It's palatable. It's safe. It's fun. He's got a rabbit's foot in his pocket. Oh, yeah. Fuck you. It's Solomonic magic, not folk magic. There is no folk magic in Mormonism. This is the roots. The Church of Christ apostates. You have to connect these dots. Joseph Smith's original church, the craft. What is the craft? What is the craft? In Freemasonry, the craft is Solomonic magic. Understand this, apostates. If you don't understand this, you have no chance. And the only way you're going to understand this is to read these books, the Testaments of Solomon, the grimoires. Who is Solomon? What does the ring even mean? What do they mean by throwing spears? What does all this even mean, apostates? Who is Solomon? Are we going to go to the Bible? Where are we going to go to find this information, apostates? Tell me, Mr. 20-minute debunker, where are you going to go to find this information? What LDS website? Where? I'll give you a clue. I'll just straight up tell you. The Testament of Solomon. Read it. You might learn something. And you will understand what all of this even means. Until you read and understand the Testament of Solomon, which you can go on YouTube, you can watch video, there's tons and tons of stuff. Not the Songs of Solomon in the Bible, right? The Testament of Solomon. And then if you want to get real crazy, go read the treaties of Solomon. Okay? Who is Hiram Abiff? The name Hiram. Why do Mormons adopt that name, right? Apostates. This is not shit that I just pulled out of my ass yesterday, okay? Right? This is your religion. This is your religion. This is Mormonism. This is the ugly face of Mormonism. This is the truth. Non-filtered, watered down, raw Mormonism. Okay? Richard Bushman, Dan Vogel, D. Michael Quinn, they're all telling you as well. These are your sources. These are Mormons. These are not sources that I use. I would never use these people as a source. Never. Never. Okay? Dan Vogel is an apologist in disguise. Absolutely. And I've straight up called him out on that. And I have told him that to his, well, to his digital face anyways. Okay, so yeah, so let's continue. That's enough of my rant on that. So it becomes shorthand, right? And this removes the artistry of the original magic. It removes the sentiment, the meaning of the magic. Why does this matter, apostates? Because Solomonic magic is not folk magic. Folk magic is low level, everyday superstition. You got a rabbit's foot in your pocket. Don't step on a crack, you break your mama's back. Right? Hey, baby, what's your sign? This is folk magic. Okay? Solomonic magic is very specific. You have to do it on a day, an hour, the full moon, the moon in crescent, the moon in waning. It's specific. And if you look at the Mormon historical story, Joseph did this stuff at night. It's telling you, put it together, apostates. Okay? TBMs, put it together. Come to Jesus, baby. Oh, fuck, I love it. Come on, man. Let's do it. You know? Solomonic or folk magic is low level, everyday superstition, charms, lucky coins, home remedies, this kind of stuff, right? Solomonic magic is a codified system, often extremely complex, ritualized, and potent. I'm going to get into the potency and ask you, apostates, a question when I'm done. And I really want to know your answer. I really want to know your answer. So, the talismans, the circles, the parchments, summoning spirits, knowledge, all squarely Solomonic traditions. And this is all stuff Joseph is known for doing, right? To recast this as folk magic is to trivialize it, is to trivialize what Joseph is doing, the meaning of what he's experiencing, his first vision, right? Do you think that's an invocation? That is an invocation, apostates. Do you understand that? Are you correlating this? Or are you just going to say it's folk magic? He's summoning spirits. He's drawing circles. He's treasure digging. This is all Solomonic magic. He's raising Alvin's body, right? He's doing all of this stuff. Necromancy. This is all in the church's own story. This is your own history, apostates. Am I coming through? Right? Okay, please comment in the comment sections if I'm coming through, right? Not the chats. The chats, I don't even pay attention to the chats. I actually have them turned off because it's very distracting. I get sidetracked and I start talking about totally other shit, trying to answer questions, and I lose my place, and it just goes haywire. So in the comments, answer, ask, right? Yeah, the chats, I actually don't even have my chats turned on. So if you have said something in the chats, I apologize because I'm not paying attention to it. So it's very distracting to me. That's why. So, all right. To recast this as folk magic is trivialized. It makes it small. It makes it safe. It makes it fun. It's a disservice to the historical legacy of Mormonism in general, right? And Solomonic magic, right? And the meaning of the ritual power of the practice, right? It's eliminating that, right? So these guys softened it. They softened the practice of Solomonic magic by calling it folk magic. It's not folk magic. So anybody that refers to this as folk magic has you in the back alley, and their finger is firmly and squarely up your backside, and you're going to donate to their channel or buy their books or whatever, right? You're in the back alley. We're going to change the narrative because this is truth. This is truth. This is not my opinion. Everything on my channel, you can fact check. Everything, everything. You can fact check it all. And it's all correct. It's all truth. It's not my opinion. The narrative of Mormonism in the ex-Mormon community must change. These people are not ex-Mormons, so they're never going to tell you this stuff. They're never going to tell you this stuff. They're never going to tell you this stuff because they're not ex-Mormons. They're doing it in a faithful way. And even if they were the Mormon ex-Mormons, which some of them, a few of them possibly might be, they're still trying to get clicks and views and stuff like that. So they're not going to offend TBMs. They want TBMs to watch their channel as well as I do. But the difference is I'm being honest with you. That's the difference. I'm not sugarcoating this. I'm being honest with you because this is history. This is your history, and it's much more interesting than this garbage that is regurgitated on literally every single ex-Mormon podcast. They're all literally talking about the exact same thing, just on various days. One will talk about garments today, and a week from now, another one. And you all suck it up and donate to their channels. You're in the fucking brothel, man. You're in the brothel in the back alley. They're not telling you the truth. The very people that are telling you the truth are the ones lying to you, Apostate Congregation. Do you understand that? I hope I don't get my words minced or confused when I say that. Okay? They call this, the church, call this folk magic. And by doing so, they have stripped these rituals of their depth, of their seriousness, of their potency. Okay? This is not a simple quarrel over semantics of words, right? This is not me having an issue with the words. It is, but there's more to it than that, though, right? You're diminishing something. That's my issue. Is you're diminishing Solomonic magic by calling it folk magic, right? It changes the perception, right? The perception. So you think it's fun and giddy. Okay? Are you understanding? It's serious. You don't dabble in Solomonic magic, apostates. Do you understand that? Please understand that. Please understand that. Okay? Solomonic magic needs to be recognized as such, right? You have to understand the Smith family and the appreciation and the Smith connection to the practice of the craft. The craft. Here we are again with that word, the craft. What is the craft? Come on, all you Masons, all you Freemasons. What is the craft? What is the craft? It's the magic of Solomon. Do you understand, apostates? I did not just pull this out of my ass yesterday and start a YouTube channel to come talk shit. Do you understand that? This is real. I'm not lying to you about this. This is not my opinion. Okay? Look it up. Look it up for yourself. I challenge you. I challenge all of you. Look it up yourself. The muse won't allow me to lie. I can't lie. I can't give you false information. I can't give you false information. This is coming from the muse. William Morgan. We are William Morgan. William Morgan is breaking this down. Do you understand that? Joseph Smith murdered William Morgan. Okay? It's in these books. And you have to understand what the craft is and how that pertains to the Church of Christ. If you don't understand that, go back to church and go let your bishop molest your children. Do you understand me? I don't care what any of you say. I don't care. Because you've never read these books. You're doing Google searches. And the sources that you are getting are LDS sources. How do I know that? Because I've already done it. I did it myself. I've been doing this for 2 years now. I already know where you're at, Mr. I'm going to debunk you in 20 minutes. I already know what websites you're on. I know where you're getting that information from because I've already done it myself. That's how I got to where I am now, right? So I encourage you to continue and to read this stuff. Actually read it because the context is so important. If you can't just look this shit up and take a passage and say, oh, the Mormon atheist is wrong. No, you can't do that. You have to read these books in context of what they are saying. Why is the author? I tell you all the time in every one of my videos, you must read the preface. The preface is the intent of the author. Why is he writing this book? What's his game? What's his shtick? What's his bone to pick? Does he have a bone to pick? Is he just writing? What's his correlation? These are things you got to understand, apostates, because that is going to give you the sentiment throughout the whole book. Is this guy a critic? Is he just writing a book? Is he a historian that's got nothing? He's just writing history? This is what you're going to find in the preface. And if you don't read the preface, you're not understanding what the book is even about. Do you got me? Okay. Thank you, Apostate Congregation, for coming tonight or this morning. It's, what is it? What time is it, like 9 o'clock or something in the morning? Apostate Congregation, like and subscribe to the channel. I have nothing to sell you, and I'm not going to ever try to sell you something. My channel is not monetized. It will never be monetized. The only way you can support the Mormon atheist, the Mormon atheist, is to like and subscribe to the channel. Read these books. Tell your friends. Research. Fact check me. And then, as crazy as you think I am, come back and subscribe and like the videos after you finally discover that I was right. Okay? Or whatever your opinion is that you form yourself after reading the book. I would very much love to know your opinions when you read these books. I know a lot of you, because through comments, a lot of you are reading these books. And I very much look forward to your opinions as when you finish them as to what you think of them, right? Like I said before, the last probably 6 episodes I've done, these books are only 50 pages long, right? Look, the Lemegeton and the Greater Keys, right? It's 230 pages, the Lemegeton. The Greater Key is 128 pages, okay? So apostates, this is not a big ask. I'm not telling you to read an 1,000-page book. If you want to read an 1,000-page book, go read H. Bancroft, History of Utah. That'll blow your mind away, that book. It tells you all about the first Book of Mormon in 1871 that was written. The first Book of Mormon that was written in 1871. That's not what the church says. Apostates, did you watch my video on are the Joseph Smith papers a fraud? That entire video is about the first edition of the Book of Mormon. Please watch that video. Mister, I'm going to debunk you in 20 minutes. That's one you can watch and try to debunk me in 5. You can try to debunk me as fast as your fingers can type. Please comment. Okay? So here we go, apostates. Thank you again for liking, subscribing, sharing. Those of you that are subscribers, I thank you very much for coming back and watching the videos. All of you new subscribers, abracadabra, baby, a brack. Let's get going. My channel is like nothing you will see on YouTube, right? Because I'm not worried about getting excommunicated. I don't give two shits what these people think, right? So I've already been doxxed. They've already doxxed me, so I don't even care about that. They had doxed me like a year ago, right? Before, even way before these two sellouts, Michelle Stone and Cultural Hall, uh, had their thing, right? I actually, they tried to buy me out. That's why, and I only had like 250 subscribers, but they told me I could not talk about Solomonic magic or Freemasonry specifically, and they would give me as much as I wanted, and I turned it down. That's why I went 6 months without doing a video, because it scared the fuck out of me. It scared the shit out of me. It really scared the shit out of me, right? And then these two people buckle under the same conditions. You fucking sellouts. You sellouts. You should come back. Whatever your name is again, I forgot your name already, but you should come back and continue your no polygamy thing, because that is true. That's not my opinion. I could give two shits if Joseph Smith. Believe me, if Joseph Smith was practicing polygamy, I would be all over that. I would be all over that. But he's not. He's not at all. There is no mention of any kind, of any sort, of any kind of polygamy whatsoever, of any kind, of any sort, until like 1845. That's true fact. In print, I want to be specific. In print, there is no message. There's nothing, nothing until 1845. That's not my opinion. Dates matter, apostates. Words matter. Celestial marriage is not polygamy. Celestial marriage is not polygamy. And in the context of the 1800s, when you read these old books, you will very, 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 one more time, very clearly see celestial marriage is different than polygamy. Once again, the attack of the cult. They've changed it. They've altered it. They've watered it down. I mean, why is the church wrong about everything else? They lie, they're deceptive, they're all this, all that. But they have to be right on polygamy? Really? Why? Why are you going to die on that hill? They have to be right. The church has to be right. You want to know why? Because some things have to be true or your story doesn't work anymore. Plain and simple. The Brighamite LDS sect of Mormonism is the only one that practices polygamy. The Brighamite sect of Mormonism is the only one that practices or practiced polygamy. Full stop. None of the other ones do. That's why they all left. That's why Emma left. That's why. Connect the dots, people. None of those churches practice polygamy, and they all say Joseph never practiced polygamy. If you think these people had an axe to grind, don't you think they would run with that story and be like, yeah, that guy's a douchebag? But they all say he didn't do it. Even in these old books. Some of these critics in these old books go into very great detail in criticizing Joseph Smith and the Mormon idea, the Mormon story, the Mormon scope, if you will, right? Don't you think if he was practicing polygamy, they would write about it? And they don't. It's never mentioned. It's not mentioned in any of these books. Nothing of the sort. That's not my opinion, apostates. I personally could give two shits if Joseph practiced polygamy. You know, good for him. He's got, you know, he's fucking three chicks at one time. Great. You know, hey, what does a guru, you know, he's taking advantage of his guruism. What guru would not do that and does not do that? So rather you call it polygamy or just being a straight up whore, that's whatever you want, man. But dates and history matter, right? So think of me what you will, my presentation, my camera angle, whatever. Dates matter, apostates. Solomonic magic matters in the roots of Mormonism. These are the roots of Mormonism, okay? And once you go into this and actually research, I'm giving you a summary, okay? I'm giving you a summary. There is no way possible. I mean, you can go, so here's something I'll tell you. If you want to know more about Solomonic magic, okay, go to the YouTube channel Esoterica. That is Justin Sledge, the PhD scholar in esoterics, and he has an entire section on Solomonic magic. Angela's Symposium, that's another one. These are practitioners, apostates. So you have to understand what this is, okay? These are practitioners, and they're also PhD scholars, okay? You're gonna find stuff if you go down these rabbit holes. I'm telling you, full disclosure caution. If you go down these rabbit holes, your faith in Mormonism will die. I promise you that. I promise you. In any of my videos, if you read any of those books, your faith is going to die. Okay? So if you want, with that in mind, if you want to stay faithful, I strongly urge you, do not go down these rabbit holes. Don't do it. I've literally had people run away from me. Run away. Literally run away from me. They left their fucking purse on the couch. They left so fast. Okay? Because they cannot deny, once you put this in your face, once you put it in your face, you can't deny it. You cannot deny it. So we're going to change the narrative, ex-Mormon podcasters. Eventually, the Apostate Congregation is going to start commenting on your channels through your chats and all that kind of shit, right? And they're going to start correcting you because you have them in the back alley and they know it now. Okay? And once you read these books, which these people are, Mr. I'm going to debunk you in 20 minutes. Please, I urge you to read these books because you are a historian. You are a legit historian. You are a legit historian. So when you're coming at me with search quotes, that's lazy and I disrespect that. You're coming at me with Google search quotes. Okay? You can't do that. The book is like 100 freaking pages. The book is 159 pages. The book that you specifically are asking me about is 159 pages. Okay? Read the damn book. Okay? You're a historian. Read the book, historian. Don't be lazy like these other historians. Do your due diligence. Okay? It's 159 pages. Read William Morgan's book. Understand that it's not finished. Mister, I'm going to debunk you in 20 minutes. His book is not finished. David Brainerd takes his book and finishes it and lays out the entire story. In those books, not so much William Morgan, but David Brainerd and Solomon Southwick and Thurlow Weed and others, pay attention to the names with an LDS ear and what's happening in those books with an LDS ear. That's the secret. That's the Masonic secret, is you have to listen with an LDS ear. And those names in context of what's happening. Then come back and let's talk. Okay? Then come back and let's talk. Read them in that succession, that order. William Morgan, David Brainerd, Solomon Southwick. Read them in that order. And then, Mr. 20 Minutes, I'm going to debunk you. Come back and let's have a conversation. I haven't even spoken to you yet, just through comments, and I can already tell that you're not doing your due diligence. You're Google searching and coming back at me with quotes, trying to tell me I'm wrong. I'm not wrong, because you're not reading the book. Remember what I said to you, Apostate Congregation, in many, many episodes. If I read a book, if you read a book, and you go to somebody, anybody, and you say, hey man, I read X, Y, and Z book yesterday, and you're never going to believe what this damn thing says. And then whoever you're talking about starts to tell you about that book, and you clearly know that that person, through what he is saying, has never read that book. That's a problem. And that's what you did. That is what you did. You're trying to give me a church history argument. I don't use church sources, dude, at all, for any reason whatsoever. I did today because I want the TBMs to know through their own church historical sources who Lumen Walters was, how the Solomonic magic pertains to Mormonism, and these stories in the milieu, right? That's the only reason I used church sources today. This is not something I pulled out of my ass. I'll say it again. Understand, I'm serious. I'm not fucking around. I'm serious when I tell you. These stories are in these books. And unless you read them, I can clearly tell you have never read them. So you have no argument. You have no argument. Once you read them, I'm very open. Come to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's discuss Mormonism and the death of William Morgan. Please, by all means, I'm happy to do it. But you got to read the book, because if you want to have a conversation, I can't have a conversation with you if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And then you're coming at me with church sources, knowing that these books tell a totally different story. Okay. Okay, thank you, Apostate Congregation. I've gone on for 28 minutes, way longer than I wanted to. Thank you. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, tell your friends, fact check me, do all this stuff. Look into Solomonic magic. It's actually pretty fun. It's a pretty fun thing. And you're going to notice so much. I'm just doing a very basic touch on this, okay? Thank you for coming tonight. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and have a good night. Have a good day. Have a good Sunday. Have a good Labor Day. It's Labor Day on Monday. So have a good Labor Day, apostates. And we are William Morgan, and we will see you on the other side.